When you first think of Satanism, you probably think of people wearing long black capes and black hoods with a pentagram on the floor, and they're sacrificing a child or a goat. But that's not really true. While Satanism back then might have had those type of rituals, the Satanists of today are mostly just atheists or human rights activists, or just plain devil worshippers with crystals and incense sticks. But to understand the history and evolution of Satanism, we have to start at the beginning, the start of Satanism that turned it into what it is today. Who were the founding fathers of Satanism, and how did it begin in a religious era of history? Well, first we have to know and answer the question. What is Satanism? Satanism is defined as a religious, ideological or philosophical beliefs based on Satan, particularly his worship or veneration. Satan, as the character we all know of, was first mentioned in the Hebrew Bible and the Old Testament in Judaism. But he wasn't depicted like the big red guy with bull horns on his head. That depiction of him came later from pop culture. The original depictions of Satan were not that dramatic. Most of them were of a white man with wings. Most of them were like the fallen angel painting. Now, due to its name and ties to Abrahamic religions and its history of people using it for sacrificing kids, whether true or not, it has been cut out of the realm of normal religions and has been put in the countercultural realm of religion. Now, most of the devil worshippers in the Middle Ages were not really devil worshippers in the same way that devil worshippers today are. They were mostly occult leaders in their area, and that's about it at the time. While the scary aspect of Satanism or occult rituals were prevalent at the time, you really didn't see the numbers of these occultists growing at the time, because most of them got capital punishment, as was with most of the people that tried to get out of normal religious practices at the time. Accusations of groups engaged in devil worship have echoed throughout much of Christian history. During the Middle Ages, the Inquisition led by the Catholic Church alleged that various heretical Christian sects and groups, such as the Knights Templar and the Cathars, performed secret satanic rituals. In the subsequent early modern period, belief in a widespread satanic conspiracy of witches resulted in the trials and executions of tens of thousands of alleged witches across Europe and the North American colonies, peaking between 1560 and 1630. The terms Satanist and Satanism emerged during the Reformation and Counter-Reformation, 1517 to 1700, as both Catholics and Protestants accused each other of intentionally being in league with Satan. Since the 19th century, various small religious groups have emerged that identify as Satanist or use satanic iconography. While the groups that appeared after the 1960s differed greatly, they can be broadly divided into non-theistic Satanism and theistic Satanism. Those venerating Satan as a supernatural deity are unlikely to ascribe omnipotence, instead relating to Satan as a patriarch. Non-theistic Satanists regard Satan as a symbol of certain human traits, a useful metaphor without ontological reality. Contemporary religious Satanism is predominantly an American phenomenon, although the rise of globalization and the internet have seen these ideas spread to other parts of the world. The term Satan has evolved from a Hebrew term for adversary, or to oppose, into the Christian figure of a fallen angel who tempts mortals into sin. The word Satan was not originally a proper name, but rather an ordinary noun that means adversary. According to author Arthur Lyons, Satanic religions are as old as monotheism and have their origins in Persia of the 6th century, and Joe Carter of the conservative ecumenical journal First Things writes that real Satanism has been around since the beginning of history, selling an appealing message: your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God. On the other hand, religious scholar Joseph Laycock writes that the available evidence suggests that Satanism began as an imaginary religion Christians invented to demonize their opponents. Confessions of worship of Satan came only after torture or other forms of coercion in early modern Europe. While early stories of satanic activity have been commonly labeled and regarded as propaganda based on falsehood, they also partially shaped the beliefs of what would become modern religious Satanism. Those who absorbed and accepted the tales sometimes began to imitate them, celebrating black masses for example, a process known to folklorists as ostension. As Christianity expanded throughout the Middle East, North Africa, and Europe, it came into contact with a variety of other religions, which it regarded as pagan. Christianity being a monotheist religion, Christian theologians believed that since there was only one God, the God of Christianity, the gods and goddesses with supernatural powers venerated by these pagans could not be genuine divinities but must actually be demons. However, they did not believe that pagans were deliberately worshipping devils, but were instead simply misguided and unaware of the true God. Those Christian groups regarded as heretics by the Roman Catholic Church were treated differently, with theologians arguing that they were deliberately worshipping the devil. This was accompanied by claims that such individuals engaged in acts of evil, incestuous sexual orgies, the murder of infants, and cannibalism, all stock accusations that had previously been leveled at Christians themselves in the Roman Empire. In Christian iconography, the devil and demons were given the physical traits of figures from classical mythology, such as the god Pan, fauns, and satyrs. The first recorded example of such an accusation being made within Western Christianity took place in Toulouse in 1022, when two clerics were tried for allegedly venerating a demon. Throughout the Middle Ages, this accusation would be applied to a wide range of Christian heretical groups, including the Paulicians, Bogomils, Cathars, Waldensians, and the Hussites. The Knights Templar were accused of worshipping an idol known as Baphomet, with Lucifer having appeared at their meetings in the form of a cat. As well as these Christian groups, these claims were also made about Europe's Jewish community. In the 13th century, there were also references made to a group of Luciferians, led by a woman named Lacardus, which hoped to see Satan rule in heaven. References to this group continued into the 14th century, although historians studying the allegations concur that these Luciferians were probably a fictitious invention. Let's fast forward to the infamous witch trials. The early modern period also saw fear of Satanists reach its historical apogee, in the form of the witch trials of the 15th to the 18th centuries, when between 40,000 and 60,000 were executed, almost all in Europe. This came about as the accusations which had been leveled at medieval heretics, among them that of devil worship, were applied to the pre-existing idea of the witch, or practitioner of malevolent magic. The idea of a conspiracy of satanic witches was developed by educated elites, although the concept of malevolent witchcraft was a widespread part of popular belief, and folkloric ideas about the night witch, the wild hunt, and the dance of the fairies were incorporated into it. The earliest trials took place in northern Italy and France, before spreading it out to other areas of Europe and to Britain's North American colonies, being carried out by the legal authorities in both Catholic and Protestant regions. Most historians agree that the majority of those persecuted in these witch trials were innocent of any involvement in devil worship. Historian Darren Eldridge writes that claims that there actually was a cult of devil worshippers being pursued by witch hunters have not survived the scrutiny of surviving trial records done by historians from 1962 to 2012. However, in their summary of the evidence for the trials, the historians Geoffrey Scar and John Callow thought it, without doubt, that some of those accused in the trials had been guilty of employing magic in an attempt to harm their enemies and were thus genuinely guilty of witchcraft. 18th to 20th century, the Enlightenment and scientific revolution changed humanity's understanding of the world. The mathematics of Isaac Newton and psychology of John Locke left little space for the intervention of supernatural beings. Charles Darwin's theory of evolution undermined the doctrine of the fall in the Garden of Eden and the role of the diabolical serpent, while also providing an alternative account of human evil, in the form of a residual effect of our animal nature. The Industrial Revolution and urbanization disturbed traditional social relations and folk ideas to undermine belief in witchcraft and the devil. Understanding of disorders of the mind undercut demonic possession. But while the hunting and killing of alleged witches waned, belief in Satan did not disappear. The French Revolution of 1789 dealt a blow to the hegemony of the Roman Catholic Church in parts of Europe, and soon a number of Catholic authors began making claims that it had been masterminded by a conspiratorial group of Satanists. Among the first to do so was French Catholic priest Jean-Baptiste Fiard, who publicly claimed that a wide range of individuals, from the Jacobins to tarot card readers, were part of a satanic conspiracy. Fiard's ideas were furthered by Alexis Vincent Charles Berbiguier de Terreneuve-du-Thym, 1765 to 1851, who devoted a lengthy book to this conspiracy theory. He claimed that Satanists had supernatural powers allowing them to curse people and to shape-shift into both cats and fleas. Although most of his contemporaries regarded Berbiguier as suffering from mental illness, his ideas gained credence among many occultists, including Stanislas de Guaita, a Kabbalist who used them for the basis of his book, The Temple of Satan. A reaction to this was the Taxil hoax in 1890s France, where an anti-clerical writer, Leo Taxil, publicly converted to Catholicism and then published several works alleging to expose the satanic doings of Freemasons. In 1897, Taxil called a press conference promising to introduce a key character of his stories, but instead announced that his revelations about the Freemasons were made up, and thanked the Catholic clergy for helping to publicize his stories. 9 years later, he told an American magazine that at first he thought readers would recognize his tales as obvious nonsense. Amusement pure and simple. But when he realized they believed his stories and that there was lots of money to be made in publishing them, he continued to perpetrate the hoax. Around the same time, another convert to Catholicism, Joris Karl Huysmans, also helped promote the concept of active Satanist groups in his 1891 work Là-bas, Down There. Huysmans helped to cement the idea of the Black Mass as satanic rite and inversion of the Roman Catholic Mass, with a naked woman for an altar. Unlike Taxil, his conversion was apparently genuine, and his book was published as fiction. In the early 20th century, the British novelist Dennis Wheatley produced a range of influential novels in which his protagonists battled satanic groups. At the same time, non-fiction authors such as Montague Summers and Rollo Ahmed published books claiming that satanic groups practicing black magic were still active across the world, although they provided no evidence that this was the case. During the 1950s, various British tabloid newspapers repeated such claims, largely basing their accounts on the allegations of one woman, Sarah Jackson, who claimed to have been a member of such a group. In 1973, the British Christian Doreen Irvine published From Witchcraft to Christ, in which she claimed to have been a member of a satanic group that gave her supernatural powers, such as the ability to levitate, before she escaped and embraced Christianity. In the United States during the 1960s and 1970s, various Christian preachers, the most famous being Mike Warnke in his 1972 book The Satan Seller, claimed that they had been members of satanic groups who carried out sex rituals and animal sacrifices before discovering Christianity. According to Gareth Medway in his historical examination of Satanism, these stories were a series of inventions by insecure people and hack writers, each one based on a previous story, exaggerated a little more each time. Other publications made allegations of Satanism against historical figures. The 1970s saw the publication of the Romanian Protestant preacher Richard Wurmbrand's book, in which he argued, without corroborating evidence, that the socio-political theorist Karl Marx had been a Satanist. At the end of the 20th century, a moral panic arose from claims that a devil-worshipping cult was committing sexual abuse, murder, and cannibalism in its rituals, and including children among the victims of its rites. Initially, the alleged perpetrators of such crimes were labeled witches, although the term Satanist was soon adopted as a favored alternative, and the phenomenon itself came to be called the Satanism scare. Those active in the scare alleged that there was a conspiracy of organized Satanists who occupied prominent positions throughout society, from the police to politicians, and that they had been powerful enough to cover up their crimes. One of the primary sources for the scare was Michel Remembers, a 1980 book by the Canadian psychiatrist Lawrence Pauser, in which he detailed what he claimed were the repressed memories of his patient and wife, Michelle Smith. Smith had claimed that as a child she had been abused by her family in satanic rituals in which babies were sacrificed and Satan himself appeared. In 1983, allegations were made that the McMartin family, owners of a preschool in California, were guilty of sexually abusing the children in their care during satanic rituals. The allegations resulted in a lengthy and expensive trial, in which all of the accused would eventually be cleared. The publicity generated by the case resulted in similar allegations being made in various other parts of the United States. A key claim by the anti-Satanists of the Satanic Scare was that any child's claim about satanic ritual abuse must be true, because children do not lie. Although some involved in the anti-Satanism movement were from Jewish and secular backgrounds, a central part was played by fundamentalist and evangelical Christians, in particular Pentecostal Christians, with Christian groups holding conferences and producing books and videotapes to promote belief in the conspiracy. In 1990, an agent of the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Ken Lanning, revealed that he had investigated 300 allegations of satanic ritual abuse and found no evidence for Satanism or ritualistic activity in any of them. By 1994, the satanic ritual abuse hysteria had died down in the US and UK, and by the 21st century, hysteria about Satanism has waned in most Western countries. Although allegations of satanic ritual abuse continued to surface in parts of continental Europe and Latin America. In the United States, SRA ideas persisted among much of the public even as law enforcement had grown tired of false leads. This was the first part of a long series I'm doing on Satanism and its figures and leaders. Make sure to like and subscribe to keep up with the next up and coming videos, and have a good day.